Alright, continuing on, this next section is a big one, so I'm going to try to get it all in one video, I hope so anyway, and that is his section on Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, which is two Greek manuscripts. Anyway, let me just share what he says and I'll interact with it. When someone corrects the King James Bible with more authoritative manuscripts or the best authorities, they're usually making some reference to Sinaiticus or Vaticanus. These are two very corrupt 4th century uncials that are practically worshipped by modern scholars. These are the primary manuscripts that Westcott and Hort relied so heavily on when constructing their Greek texts 1851 to 1871, on which the new perversions are based. Vaticanus, which is identified by letter B, is the most worshipped. This manuscript was officially catalogued in the Vatican Library in 1475 and is still property of the Vatican today. Sinaiticus, which is known as Aleph, or has the Hebrew symbol for that, was discovered in a trash can at St. Catherine's Monastery on the traditional Mount Sinai by Count Tischendorf, a German scholar, in the year 1844. Both B and Aleph are Roman Catholic manuscripts. Remember that. You might also familiarize yourself with the following facts. Now, before I get into these following facts, because you list them 1, 2, 3, and so forth, let me address some of the comments that's made in this part I just read. First of all, no one has expressed, and when I say no one, none of the translators of the new translations or any of the scholars that have produced works that are used by the new translators have ever thought in terms of correcting the King James Bible. They no more are saying they're correcting the King James Bible than the King James translators have said that they're correcting the Bishop's Bible. You know, I shared with you the letter to the reader and some of the introductory material to the 1611, and shared with you the words of the translators themselves and the attitude they had about making good translations, making, one that was to the best of their ability. But they did not put down the ones that was before them. The new translations do not do that with the King James either. I just want to make that point. So nobody is thinking that they're correcting the King James Bible. The other thing, it says Vaticanus, which is manuscript B, is the most worshipped. I think that this terminology right here is coming from a resource done by Dr. Waite, who is a King James only advocate, and he made a statement in one of his books that Vaticanus and Sinaiticus are practically worshipped by new scholars. And let me just say that there's no evidence to say of any kind of worshipful language applied towards these manuscripts. They are treasured just the same as the King James only advocates treasure the Textus Receptus, because you see it as God's word. Any part of God's word, anything that is God's word, is treasured by his people. But worshipped is going too far. Let's see. Alright, Sinaiticus was discovered in a trash can at St. Catherine's Monastery by Count Tischendorf. That's an outright lie. If you read the accounts by Tischendorf, what happened was this. This guy Tischendorf wanted to do sort of like Erasmus. Erasmus, went around trying to collect, Greek manuscripts that he could find, to collate to do his work. Tischendorf wanted to do the same thing, so he traveled around. Well, one of the places he went to was the St. Catherine's Monastery, and he went there about 1853 or so, and he noticed that the monks were using some paper, to fuel their fire. And some of these strips of paper, if a piece fell on the floor or something, he picked it up and he noticed, it had some Greek writing on it. So he was thinking, hey, this might be something. So he investigated, and of course what happened was, two things going on. One, As paper, wears out, it starts tearing apart, breaking apart. When they would have that, they'd sweep it up off the floor and then they would burn it. But as scribes, they're copying, they're making copies, so the originals eventually, would deteriorate and be thrown away, and you have the copy remaining to carry on. So anyway, but because he saw these fragments or whatever, he realized that there might be something here. Well, because he was getting excited about it, it kind of scared the monks. They kind of shut him off. They wouldn't let him go. Well, 6 years later, he comes back. So now we're 1859. Remember that because it comes back up in a minute. 1859, he goes back. And the head guy of the monastery, as a gift for letting Tischendorf come and visit him and everything, he brings him a copy of the Septuagint. And he presents it to the guy. And the guy's like, hey, I already have something like this. So he takes Tischendorf back to his private cell, his room. And in his closet or whatever, he has wrapped up in, very neatly in some red, I want to say it was like velvet material. He unwraps, and then there's this manuscript that's in Greek. And that is Sinaiticus that was discovered. So it was not in the trash can. It was wrapped up. It was protected. It was treasured by the monk. He kept it, safe, put up. It wasn't found in a trash can. So that's an outright lie. And you can research that yourself and see firsthand that saying that he found it in a trash can is just an outright lie. So, alright, let me move on because that gets me so upset. I mean, if you're going to make assertions and everything, it's got to be based on fact. It can't be based on fiction. Alright. He says both B and Aleph, which are both Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, are Roman Catholic manuscripts. Do you realize that even the Antioch manuscripts, the Byzantine manuscripts, prior to the Reformation, were copied by Catholic monks and monasteries? Because that's what they did. Again, so this demonizing, something, oh, that's Roman Catholic, automatically chunk it out. I'm sorry, everything before the Reformation was Roman Catholic. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional about it because I'm interacting with what is so blatant, just misrepresentations of the facts. Alright, point number 1. Both manuscripts contain the Apocrypha as part of the Old Testament. The 1611 facsimile, and like I said, I have put up before a site, greatsite.com, where they actually have in their possession original 1611 printings of the King James you can buy for a few $100,000 that have been preserved, kept, and they have it, and they'll sell you one. Guess what? They contain the Apocrypha. What does that say at the top? You see it right there? Sorry. Apocrypha. This happens to be Tobit that I turned to. Apocrypha. Do you know it was actually against the law for them to print the scriptures without the Apocrypha? It wasn't until like somewhere 30, 50, maybe 60 years after the original 1611 printing to where Bible started being printed without the Apocrypha. So that argument is dead. For the sake of time, I'm going to stop and I'll pick up with point number 2 and we'll carry on.